AQL sounds like a technical term that only quality engineers care about. But if you import products from China, or from any country, understanding AQL can save you from expensive surprises, angry customers, and long email fights with suppliers. So in this video, I'm going to explain AQL in a very simple way. No complicated math, no jargon. Just a practical explanation for importers, brand owners, Amazon sellers, wholesalers, and project buyers. By the end of this video, you'll understand what AQL actually means, why factories and inspectors use it, how AQL sampling works in real life, what AQL level you should choose, and how to avoid the most common mistakes buyers make. Let's start with the simplest definition. AQL stands for Acceptable Quality Limit. In plain English, AQL is a sampling standard that helps you decide whether a batch of products should pass or fail an inspection. Because here's the reality, you can't check every single piece in a large shipment. If you order 5,000 units, inspecting all 5,000 may be too slow and too expensive. So instead, AQL gives you a structured way to inspect a sample and make a fair decision about the whole lot. Now, here is the key point many buyers misunderstand. AQL does not mean this is the exact defect rate in your order. It also does not mean as long as defects are under AQL percentage, everything is fine. Instead, AQL is a risk-based rule for sampling. It helps you answer this question. If I check a reasonable sample size and find too many defects, should I accept or reject this batch? That's the real purpose. Now let's talk about why AQL exists in the first place. In manufacturing, there will always be a small number of defects. Even the best factories sometimes produce minor issues. The goal is not perfection. The goal is controlled risk. AQL was created to balance two things: the buyer's need for quality and consistency, and the factory's reality of large-scale production. So AQL sampling becomes a common language between a buyer, a supplier, and a third-party inspector. Now let's make this very practical. In most consumer goods inspections, defects are usually grouped into three categories: critical defects, major defects, and minor defects. Here's what that means in simple terms. Critical defects are dangerous or illegal. They could cause injury, safety risks, or serious compliance problems. For example, sharp edges in a children's product, electrical hazards, or a product that violates safety regulations. For critical defects, the common expectation is zero tolerance. Major defects are not necessarily dangerous, but they make a product unacceptable for most customers. These are defects that will likely cause returns, bad reviews, or reputation damage. Examples could be wrong dimensions, broken functionality, or obvious appearance issues. Minor defects are small imperfections that don't affect use. Things like tiny cosmetic marks, slight color variation, or very small packaging issues. Now, when people talk about AQL levels, you'll often hear these numbers: AQL 0 for critical, AQL 2.5 for major, and AQL 4.0 for minor. This is one of the most common inspection setups. But here's the important part. Those are not universal rules. They are common defaults. Depending on your product category and target market, you may need stricter or looser standards. Now let's look at how AQL works with sampling. AQL is usually based on three numbers: your total order quantity, the sample size, and the acceptance and rejection limits. The inspector does not randomly decide these numbers. They come from a sampling standard. In practice, this means if your order is larger, your sample size increases. But it does not increase linearly. You're not checking 10% or 20% of the order. You're checking a statistically defined sample that provides reasonable confidence while controlling time and cost. Then the inspector counts defects in that sample. If defects are within the acceptance limit, the lot passes. If defects exceed the rejection limit, the lot fails. And sometimes there is a middle zone that triggers further action. Now, let's simplify this with an easy example. Imagine you ordered 2,000 pieces. Based on standard AQL sampling, the inspector may check around 125 pieces. Now let's say your AQL plan is critical, 0, major, 2.5, minor, 4.0. In this scenario, the inspector might be allowed to accept the shipment if there are 0 critical defects, no more than a small number of major defects, and no more than a slightly larger number of minor defects. If major defects go beyond the limit, you fail, even if minor defects look acceptable. That's why defect classification matters, and that's why you need to agree on what is critical, major, and minor for your product before inspection. Now let's address another common confusion. Many buyers assume AQL means, if I pass inspection, everything in the shipment is good. That is not what AQL guarantees. Passing AQL means, the sample did not show an unacceptable defect level based on the chosen standard. There could still be defects in the uninspected items. That's why smart buyers combine AQL inspection with other controls: clear product specifications, approved pre-production samples, first article checks, and consistent supplier performance tracking. AQL is one tool, not the entire quality system. Now, here's the most important question. What AQL level should you choose? Let's make it simple. If your product is high risk, safety-related, or highly regulated, you need stricter AQL settings. Examples include electrical products, children's products, medical or safety use items, and anything that could cause injury or major compliance trouble. In these categories, many buyers expect 0 critical defects and a tighter major defect limit. If your product is a mid-price consumer good where customer expectations are high, for example home appliances, branded lifestyle products, or premium decor, you also need stricter standards, because one consistent defect can damage your brand. But if your product is low-cost, seasonal, or clearance-type goods, you might accept a slightly more flexible AQL level. The key is to match your AQL setting to your market reality. Your customers determine your real tolerance. Now let's talk about the biggest mistakes importers make with AQL. Mistake number 1, not defining defects clearly. Some buyers just say, please do AQL inspection, but they don't define what counts as major or minor. So the inspector uses a generic assumption, and you may get a passing report that still includes defects you personally consider unacceptable. The fix is simple. Provide a defect list or quality checklist. For example, major defect, scratches longer than 2 cm on visible surfaces. Minor defect, tiny marks under 0.5 cm. Critical defect, sharp edges or electrical safety risk. The more specific you are, the more aligned your inspection results will be with your expectations. Mistake number 2, using AQL for the wrong products. AQL is great for standardized mass production, but for highly customized products, like complex furniture with many unique finishes or special engineering components, you may need a different inspection approach. Sometimes you need 100% checks for key functions, or a customized sampling plan. Mistake number 3, thinking inspection can fix bad specifications. Inspection can only check what you define. If your product spec is vague, the factory may interpret it differently, and the inspector won't know what your real standard is. So always remember, good quality starts with good documentation. Mistake number 4, only doing pre-shipment inspection. If you only inspect at the end, you're catching problems late. A smarter approach is, approve a golden sample, do a pre-production check if the product is complex, monitor during production when needed, and then do final AQL inspection before shipment. This reduces surprises and avoids expensive rework. Now, let's get even more practical. How should you communicate AQL requirements to suppliers? Here's a simple sentence you can use. For this order, we will follow AQL inspection standards. Critical defects, 0 tolerance. Major defects, AQL 2.5. Minor defects, AQL 4.0. We will also provide a defect checklist for reference. And if you want to be more strict, you can adjust. Major defects, AQL 1.5. Minor defects, AQL 2.5. Again, your choice depends on your product and brand risk. Now, what happens if you fail an AQL inspection? This is where many buyers panic. But a fail is not the end of the world. A fail is a decision point. You typically have several options. Option 1, ask the factory to rework and repair the defective items, then schedule a re-inspection. Option 2, negotiate a discount if defects are minor and you can manage them in your market. Option 3, split the shipment and accept only the good portion. The right option depends on your sales timeline, your market tolerance, and your relationship with the supplier. The key is that AQL gives you an objective basis for negotiation. Instead of emotional arguments, you can say, the inspection failed based on the agreed AQL standard. We need corrective action before shipment. That is a much stronger position than just saying, we are not happy with the quality. Now let's wrap everything up. AQL is a sampling-based quality standard used to decide whether your shipment should pass or fail inspection. It helps you manage risk without inspecting every single unit. It usually classifies defects into critical, major, and minor. And common settings you may see are 0 for critical, 2.5 for major, and 4.0 for minor. but those levels are not universal. You should adjust them based on your product category, price point, brand risk, and customer expectations. Most importantly, AQL inspection works best when combined with clear specifications, approved samples, and smart production control. If you want a China-based team to help you set the right AQL strategy, define defect standards, monitor production, and arrange inspections and shipping, you can reach out to Yan Sourcing through the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.